Now, Sri Bill moved, motion moved, Sri Jairam Ramesh.
Sir, I rise to support the Central Universities Amendment Bill 2014, but I do want to give a bit of history on this amendment. When a decision was taken to establish a central university in Bihar, the location that was identified by the UPA government was near Gaya. And one of the factors that led to that decision was the availability of adequate land. The then Chief Minister of Bihar, Shri Nitish Kumar ji, made a special request that in view of the historical importance of Motihari in East Champaran district, and in view of the fact that the country would be celebrating the centenary of the Champaran agitation, the Central University should be located in Motihari and not in Gaya, near Gaya. This matter went back and forth between the state government and the central government. The policy of the central government has been that as far as possible, central universities should be located in areas that have good infrastructure and that are in a position to attract good faculty. This discussion took place for well over 2 years. I myself had discussions with the Chief Minister of Bihar at that time and the then Minister for Human Resource Development. No resolution of the issue was possible. Finally, a decision was taken to go ahead and establish the Central University in South Bihar. However, the amendment bill has come. There has been a universal demand that a central university should be established in North Bihar, in Motihari, and we have this amendment bill in front of us. And I do want to begin by recalling the contributions of the then Chief Minister of Bihar, Shri Nitish Kumar, who single-handedly carried on a campaign to have this university in Motihari, a campaign with which I was in full agreement with. So having said this, I do want to go back in time and look at the decade of 2004 and 2014, and it's very fortunate that the then Prime Minister is with us this afternoon. So this decade saw what I would call the most unprecedented expansion in the infrastructure for higher education. Higher education infrastructure has always been expanding, but it is in the decade of 2004 to 2014 that the expansion was at its most rapid pace. I would like to recall here, sir, that it was in this decade that 8 new IITs, 7 new IIMs, 16 new central universities, 5 new Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research, 20 new triple ITs, 6 new law schools, and 2 new schools of planning and architecture for which the Honorable Minister will be bringing legislation tomorrow. It was this decade that saw the most rapid expansion in infrastructure. So what was the outcome of this expansion? The outcome of this expansion was that in 2004, just about 10% of India's college-going population was going to colleges. So the international definition is of age group of 18 to 22. So only 10% of the age group of 18 to 22 were going to college in 2004. So it's a matter of great satisfaction that in 2013-14, this ratio stands at 19%. So almost 1 in 5 of the youth in the age group of 18 to 22 who should be in college are in college. So this is not something that we should be satisfied with. We should progressively increase the gross enrollment ratio, and we look forward to a time when this ratio would reach 40 to 50% at least, which is the norm in most advanced countries. But the fact is that between 2004 and 2014, the decade which saw the most rapid expansion in the infrastructure for higher education, particularly central universities, IITs, and also the 10 new National Institutes of Technology, or the NITs, the consequence of this was an unprecedented increase in the gross enrollment ratio of youth in the 18 to 22 age group from about 10% to about 19%. So expansion has happened, but problems of quality do remain. And I want to take this opportunity of highlighting a couple of issues which I'm sure the Honorable Minister has already become sensitized to and which would form priorities as far as higher education is concerned. So I believe that between 2004 and 2014, with the rapid expansion of infrastructure that has taken place, we can take satisfaction in the fact that enrollment rates have increased and expansion has taken place. Access issues have been addressed, but now the challenge is to address the quality issues. And the quality issues must be addressed beginning with the central universities, because it is the central universities that are role models for quality, particularly insofar as quality of faculty is concerned. So it is one of the great paradoxes of India that Indian institutions are of world quality because of their students and not because of their faculty. It is because of the quality of students that our institutions get their reputation. It's not so much because of the faculty. And I think the biggest challenge that faces the central universities today is the quality of faculty. Of course, there are honorable exceptions, Delhi University, Jawaharlal Nehru University. There are many exceptions to this. But by and large, sir, central universities must set the tone for quality in terms of faculty is concerned. So there are alarming reports that almost 60% of all universities in India are below par. And almost 70% of colleges have been found to be below par through the accreditation process. Now, the quality challenge with the central universities must extend to all other institutions of higher learning, most of which are under the control of the state governments. Which brings me to the second point, which is that 2 years ago, the government, recognizing the importance of quality, launched the Rashtriya Uch RUSA, the Rashtriya Uch Shiksha Abhiyan. This was a very innovative program to use central government funding in order to upgrade the quality of infrastructure and education in universities run by state governments. So the entire education budget in the government, or in India, 25% is borne by the central government in higher education and 75% is borne by the state government. So it's very important to leverage central government funding to bring about reforms in governance as far as the university system that is run by the state governments are concerned. And RUSA was one instrument by which the central government would use the incentive of financing to bring about changes in the way universities are governed. I would request the Honorable Minister to accord the same priority and importance to RUSA, which the former Prime Minister accorded, and use RUSA as an instrument of driving quality changes, infrastructure changes, and most importantly, governance changes, particularly in the universities that are run by the state government. So higher education is largely in the private domain. Central universities account for less than 3% of total enrollment. Central universities are prestigious universities, but in terms of enrollment, they do not constitute the bulk of the enrollment. The bulk of the enrollment is in state institutions and in private institutions. And when you talk of professional education, engineering education, medical education, the proportion of private investment is much more. And I would like to highlight two issues in regard to this aspect for the Honorable Minister's consideration. First, there is a huge regional imbalance in the distribution of private educational institutions. If you look at the private higher educational institutions, almost 60% are accounted for by 5 states: Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. The bulk of northern India and the bulk of eastern India is not covered in the map of private education, which is emerging as a very important instrument of higher education. This applies to engineering education, this applies to, more importantly, medical education, and the former health minister is also here in the house. So the regional distribution is very important because the contribution of the private sector in higher education is much higher and is in fact going to increase in the years to come. Secondly, the regulation of private education providers is very important because we all know instances of fly-by-night operators in different states who have taken students for a ride, who have not provided quality education, who claim to be deemed universities, but are actually doomed universities. They are not deemed universities. So I would request the Honorable Minister to give thought to comprehensive regulation of the private sector. Regulation not to strangulate the growth, but regulation to enforce minimum quality standards, regulations to ensure minimum infrastructure in these institutions. This is not an occasion for a debate on education policy. I have confined my remarks to higher education, and I will just summarize by saying that I support the amendment bill. I applaud the role played by the former Chief Minister, Shri Nitish Kumarji, and I do wish that in keeping with the legislation that the UPA government had brought in 2009, the Central Universities Act, under which these amendments are being brought, would be implemented in letter and spirit in order to ensure that the expansion that has taken place is accompanied by an equal emphasis on quality and on governance. I think it's very important for government institutions to develop an arm's length relationship with institutions of higher learning. Our universities must emerge as world-class institutions on the strength of their faculty, on the strength of their research, on the strength of their intellectual contributions. And I am sure that if you create the right environment for governance, and if you reduce governmental intervention in the running of central universities and other institutions, you will begin to see a new environment that will emerge. With these words, sir, I support the amendment and I thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much.